Welcome back to the Mob Mentality Show. My name is Austin Chadwick, and today is going to be a little bit different because we're here to celebrate a momentous occasion for mob programming. So about this time, 10 years ago, mob programming with the people here at the show first began with that name. And so, yeah, this is the 10-year anniversary. So celebration and emojis should abound. And so I'm really excited about this episode. And so Chris, instead of being a co-host, he's going to be part of the panel today. And so, yeah, so we're actually going to go around and have each person in the panel introduce themselves because these were some of the individuals that were on that original mob programming team. And so, yeah, let's go around and we'll have them introduce themselves. And then I'll be asking a series of questions about that team. So to kick us off, Dexter, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, name's Dexter, and I started with Hunter about 1997. Sorry, scratch that, 2007. And then I met Woody, that's when our journey started, and it was an exciting journey. And I'm really glad that, hey, we're celebrating the 10th year anniversary, and I'm very excited to go down the memory lane and talk about what happened and how we did it.
Right on. How about you, Woody?
So yeah, I'm Woody Zuill, and I must say I am just so pleased that these 10 years have continued on as they have. So Dexter, when we first met, I don't know if I ever told you, but it was clear to me you were going to be a star on the team, and I was really glad that you were there. You made all of this possible. So I don't know if that's a good introduction here, but there you go. We didn't drag Chris into it until a few months later.
Such an honor.
Still before we were mob programming.
Yeah. And yeah, people on the show know a little bit about who I am. So I'm Chris Lucian. Back then, I kind of signed on with the team. I had joined one of Woody's talks at the San Diego .NET developer group. Saw him talk. They said that they had a position open, and I thought, hey, I really want to work in that extreme programming style. And I hadn't gotten a lot of opportunities to exercise craftsmanship unless it was just myself doing it. Like I didn't really ever have manager buy-in for any of the stuff that I was doing until then. So that's kind of why I ended up applying and joining the team at that time. And so, yeah, it was a real great experience.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, great introductions. And so with Chris Lucian, Woody Zuill, and Dexter Baga, we're going to jump into the questions now. And so the overall theme will go from pre-mobbing to mobbing and maybe a little bit about afterwards. But so jumping in with some pre-mobbing topics, what were the common pain points for both development and testing before mobbing?
I feel like Dexter, you've got to be the one to address this.
Well, since it involves both development and testing, and so originally with the team, I was in QA. So my role at that company where we started my programming, I was originally as a QA engineer. And there were a lot of things that, were desired. I saw that we were missing. One was automation, and everything was doing manual testing. We didn't have enough even test scripts to begin with, so everything was being done in memory. But automation was missing. There was a need to really perform, for example, code reviews to go through the previous work that was performed by the developers. As back then, we just had so many tickets coming out as we just deployed to production, and all of a sudden we have bugs coming in, and we had to go on emergency mode and try to fix them even a day later. And on the development front, I think there was a lot of work, but there was not much collaboration between developers back then. And again, those are the things that were most visible to me at that time.
about you, Woody?
So Dexter was part of the team that was in place when I was hired. And Dexter was part of the group that interviewed me to determine whether I should work there or not. And what had been expressed to me was that they wanted to learn Agile stuff. They wanted to understand, these new, quote unquote, new ways of working. And they wanted to get good at what they were able to do. I reviewed the code that was in place on a couple projects. I watched the people working, took a little tour around the place to see how things were being done. And I saw it as an excellent opportunity for me if we could set things up for at least having a chance for success. And so the day I was hired, Dexter, you could correct me if I'm wrong. The day I was hired, you were preparing to deliver. Maybe it was your first full-on project that was going. It's that day or a few days later. That was for a thing that you had developed yourself. And I wanted to come to the presentation that you would do to the people you were handing the code off to, the application off to. And I believe we had a meeting that we could have called a lessons learned meeting or something like that. That was at that time or a few days later. At the same time, there was another project that was supposed to be delivered almost exactly that day as well. It never did get delivered, at least not in the way they were hoping to. But it was a batch of code that was bug fixes and improvements and additions, enhancements to an existing project that was in desperate condition. And then another one was coming up that was that had just passed its deadlines a few months earlier and was getting ready to be worked on for the next deadline, which would have been quite a bit later. So that was the shape of the place. And I've already said, Dexter, I could tell working with you on that very first little thing that you had the qualities I would have hired for if I was hiring this team.
Nice.
And we can see in every place that I've ever worked, I'm not necessarily easy to get along with. And so I, at some point, started looking for people who could make it easier for us to do things the way that we should or could be able to do it. And Chris, when we hired you, that was a big part of hiring you. So I could see that you had those qualities that we would want to have on a team. And I'm so glad that both of you were there. Without you folks, I don't know that we would have done it. So I don't know, the condition of the thing then was 2 very large, very late projects, lots of code fixing all the time. It seemed like every day, everyone was fixing stuff. There was one person who was mostly just dedicated to doing repairs, bug report things, and so on. And all of that to me is bordering on dysfunctional. So that was the condition of the place. And Dexter, I don't know if I ever told you this, so this is good that I get to share it with you, but I had 2 main goals at the time. One was I wanted to make it where everybody who came into work at Hunter would kind of say as they're driving in, I wish I didn't have to work, but I'm sure glad I'm working here since I have to work. And the other goal was when we would get an opening, when we would get opportunities to hire people, everyone on the team would want to go and tell their friends, hey, you should come to work here. You would love working here. And I knew if I could accomplish those things as my own personal goals, then probably all the good stuff that the team wanted to have happening and the company needed to have happen would have been accomplished. So those were my overarching thoughts about what I wanted to see happen.
Yeah, and I think that, so when I joined, it was after you'd been there for, I think, about 3 months, maybe a little bit more than that. And
I think I started near the end of April.
Yeah. Okay, April. Yeah, so 3-4 months or something along those lines. So when I arrived, I was at the same time happy that some practices were in place, but also surprised that others weren't, because I had attended Woody's talks and I'd seen a number of things on TDD and extreme programming, and I was like, yeah, this is going to be what it is. And I got there and I was like, oh wow, like this is like more of like a mid transition. So and it was like, one thing I did realize was like, change could be made, which I think was really important. But so when I got there, it was, people were still kind of individually assigned projects. There was still lots of bugs in kind of the bug database and things like that. But there was a Kanban and a dedicated Kanban, and I think that Woody had put that in place, and then dedicated learning sessions and things like that. And so, and kind of like for myself, I refer to that as kind of the combination of learning sessions and retrospectives as the virtuous loop, right? But so you had Kanban, retrospectives, learning sessions, I think, and I think that a lot of that was like seeds for a lot of really great things to happen.
So we were not assigning work by that time.
Yeah.
It was, people would, we made all our work visible, and then we tackled that work depending on who could do what and so on. So
yeah, just based off of the Kanban there.
Yeah.
But just before that, it was like individually assigned dedicated projects.
When I arrived, that's the way it was, and that was one of the things I knew we couldn't have, because that almost always ends up in people being siloed, not being able to collaborate with each other.
Nice. Okay, cool. That gives a good picture of the pre-mobbing state. And I think I have maybe one or two questions on the pre-mobbing state. And one is, what were the, maybe it's been hit on a little bit, but what were kind of the collaboration patterns or knowledge sharing patterns that were in existence before y'all started mobbing? Maybe we'll start with you, Dexter.
You mean collaboration patterns that never existed? As I pointed out, that was really something to be really desired, heavily desired part of the team. So everybody was siloed. They're just in their own corner and just writing code. And there was less of the, hey, do you know about this? Or I have a problem with this. Could you help me out? Type of thing, right? You know, just kind of going to your neighbor and just asking for help, or just ask a question.
I have a story there. When I first joined the team, we did sit down together to kind of work on something. And this might have even been shortly after we started mobbing, but we needed to make a database change to a production database. And I got up to go and say to tell the DBA, hey, we need to do this change. Will you work with us? And I was stopped by one of the team members and told, no, we got to put a ticket in for that. We can't walk up to that person and ask them for something. And so I was stopped from having a face-to-face conversation to go and walk over to talk to somebody that was like 4 cubicles away. And so, but like that was just shocking to me. And like, but that was the reality of it. Like, I think the team in general was, I think forcibly not communicating with each other and telling each other not to communicate with each other. It was really interesting.
So communication via ticketing system, I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah. Right on. Okay, cool. One more with pre-mobbing is, how often was deployment happening? And I think, Woody, you started to touch on this, but maybe out of clarity, you can add a little bit more to how often production deployments were happening.
Well, I would say from my observations, the only things that were getting deployed were bug fixes, emergency bug fixes. So that doesn't mean other things weren't, and that Dexter had been working on something that got delivered. I don't know, Dexter, if it was the first week, probably something like that. I could kind of think of it as being the first day, but it was somewhere there in the first week or two. And that was probably the only thing that had been delivered of any substantial amount of work in a long time. I could be wrong. Dexter, you were there before me, so you might know.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I think that was like the only project that was deployed that year as a new project. A lot of them were maintenance work. So, and as I said earlier, it's pretty much like we deploy and you got a ticket about that you need to fix the following day.
Yeah.
And certainly that can take a long time as well to fix it, because of, again, the nature of how we used to work pre-mobbing. Yeah.
Right on. Very good. Okay, so we'll jump now to maybe the start of mobbing and some of the questions and reflections on that and after mobbing. And so I guess we won't go into details of how mobbing got started. I think Woody's done a great job of that in many of his talks. We'll put that in the show notes. But the team came together and started mobbing. And so maybe my first question is, what were some of the immediate benefits that you noticed right away when the team started mobbing together? Yeah, go ahead and start us off, Dexter. Again, that'd be great.
One of the things that I loved right away, and this coincides when also Chris came aboard as well, where we started to really do a lot of learning, where we started to really get the feel of the pattern of what we now do in mob programming. None of us had done any unit tests or done TDD, those type of things. So the team really started to learn all those things with Woody's guidance, and predominantly Chris was the primary navigator on a lot of things that we were doing, because he was just good, right? That's just how good he was. And he is still very good, right?
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
No,
So again, so because I believe the way that they worked before, we were kind of stuck with good old ASP code, old framework code, right? MS Access code. But then once we came together, we started to like have these learning sessions. We start to learn new technologies, MVC, right? ASP.NET. And I think those are the things that kind of highlighted for me the true beginning of what it meant to work as a team.
Yeah. Right. How about you, Woody?
So the very day that we started working this way, I've told the story many, many times, but when we did a retrospective, we were doing these daily retrospectives or trying to, where I would ask the simple question, you know, what went well today? And when we identified anything that went well, we could say, how do we get more of that tomorrow? How do we get more right away? Not in 2 weeks, or not what are we going to do over the next year to improve this? What can we do right now that will make it, what step can we take? And at the end of that, I have a still pretty clear memory that everybody kind of agreed that we got a lot done that very first day, that it was of high quality, that everyone had learned a lot, and that we had a good time. It was fun. Any one of those is enough for me to say, you know, let's do more of this. And the typical question I would pose would be, how do we get more of this tomorrow? And the obvious one on this is, well, let's just book some time, some rooms where we can work together as a team again tomorrow. And I went through recently, I know the day of that, I just don't have it in front of me. It was very early, I think, in October. Anyway, it may have been even earlier than that. We started working this way, and then I booked rooms from that day on until we got our own room. So this is the thing, is I think the whole team recognized, wow, this was it was an accident that we started doing it. You know, it's just, we just started helping each other on something that needed to get done. And then that we recognized how good it was for us. So that was about it. I think everybody on the team said, let's do this again tomorrow. I don't think there was anybody saying, I don't think we should work this way again. You know, it was unanimous.
Yeah, and I remember, you know, we wanted to be considerate of other people around the company, and so we would block the meeting rooms in 2-hour chunks, and we'd move between meeting rooms. But we still got the whole day in of mobbing, but you know, we'd have a nice walk in between these meeting rooms sometimes. But you know, then we had our dedicated space, and then that space was upgraded later, and so but it was just really a lot of great side effects that we had seen, and lots of learning, just high bandwidth learning happening.
Nice.
I think that's when people start to even notice at that early point in time, right? Is what are they doing? Why are they all together? Are they working?
Well, our boss came in, Dexter, one day to me and took me out and said, what are you guys doing back here? I said, we're having a meeting. And he said, okay. So he left, and he came back the next day and said, but you're having a meeting all day, every day. So it was clear this wasn't programming as usual.
Nice. Yeah, and I think we'll get into you know, grander system or organization buy-in later, but I definitely want to follow up on that one. But I guess quickly, over the span of mobbing for a while, we talked about bugs and deployments earlier in the pre-mobbing state. How was it afterwards for bugs and deployments? Maybe we'll start with Chris this time.
Yeah, so when I joined the team, it was, there's probably some significant movement around, bugs and the relationship to deployments. And I think there was a lot of thought being put into, especially one piece of access code that was basically known for instability and things like that. But there was just this large database of these issues, and so when we had started mobbing, it was we were working on something together that basically had a quickly approaching deadline, and there were problems with it, but we were able to eliminate those problems quickly, and we kind of already had a priority around eliminating those problems, but the quality of everything, like what he said, came out and was just much better. We all had the right people there talking about it together, and that was really important.
Nice. I hear at one point there was the bug database was decommissioned. About how long did it take before that happened?
Yes, Dexter,
I don't know that I ever really had much experience with that. We were really attempting almost immediately to deliver tiny bits daily on the things that we did, and it changes the communication style. So the database for applications that were already in place, that stayed there. I think for our new projects, we never instituted it. We never started really even using that. That's my recollection.
Yeah, I would say that as soon as new requests stopped coming in for the older projects, based on our responses together and a lot of these things, then nothing new was ever entered in there, and some things were closed out over time, and it was just eventually forgotten, more or less. And so it's just like, hey, we don't need that server anymore, you can take it down. And I think probably months to a year, somewhere around there, we had sent out that communication.
Nice, right on. And maybe Dexter, how about deployments? So how did the deployment change after mobbing?
We get the request like within that week, and we can deploy it within that week. We were able to deploy things pretty quickly, make changes quickly. And I think it really a big part of that, I think, is that what has also changed when we went mobbing was one pattern that I really personally really believe was to have this high frequency of communication with the customer. And so I believe that one of the issues before was that a lot of these bugs come out because you get a ticket and then you work on it, but you made it wrong. you didn't really get it right. So at that, when we started mobbing, people would see us like as a group of people going to a different department, just talking to the users, not necessarily even to gather requirements, just say hi. And then we can, have those conversations as well as to, do you mean this? Like we watch them, how they do their work. And I think that was part of that was one of the factors why we can work on something and really get it, right and deployed quickly to production, even the following day.
When I started at Hunter, Dexter had invited me to go and see other, different product owners on different projects and things like that. We would go for walks on different parts of the campus, and so Dexter's advocacy for that continued into mobbing, and it became a group practice. And so it's something that, you definitely had a passion for it before we did, and that passion essentially got the entire team to start doing a good habit. And so I think that's like a big benefit of mobbing in general, is the good habits spread and the bad habits stop. because of, you have 4 people and they all have different habits and they can compare and contrast and shortly after homogenize, right?
Nice. Right on. Okay, so we'll jump kind of from the technical with bugs and deployments to maybe kind of more the interpersonal side of mobbing. And I have to say, it feels like daily or at least once a week that I see someone on Twitter being like, mob programming, what? How could you possibly do that on a personal level for a long period of time? And so what was, maybe we'll have each person go around and say, like, what was your biggest challenge personally when working in this new kind of way, and maybe some ways you helped overcome it? Yeah, let's start again with you, Dexter.
So the biggest challenge for me was I really wanted to go faster. I wanted to really see a lot more. I think I was just being greedy. For me personally, like, there are a lot of things that we can do. Why are we not doing this and that and this? Because I started reading about Agile. I started like watching videos about Agile and like, these are great. These are good. Why aren't we doing this? In my head, it's like, we're being left behind. And even with what are practices that are being done, technical practice that people are doing is like, and so deep inside me, I really wanted to go fast. But I understood that, I'm just a member of the team, and the team needs to grow together, not like, you go on your own and learn on your own. This was more of a team effort. Everybody needs to be elevated the same as a group. And so, of course, once I realized, I was like, okay, this is still good because we will be working on these things together anyway as a group. So I don't have to really worry much about that.
Nice. Right on. And we just had someone else from the original mob programming team just join the call. So DanYeung, do you mind giving a short introduction about yourself before we ask some follow-up questions to you and the rest of the panel?
Yeah, I am a C# developer for a few years, many years. So we usually work independently or individually or as some pair. But Woody introduced the mob programming. I think it was very great, and put everybody on the same level, and also we can resolve the problem quickly. So I really enjoy it.
Oh, right on. And yeah, that's a great introduction, and we appreciate you being here. And we're actually going around, and one of the questions we're talking about is, after mobbing was started, what was one of the biggest like personal or interpersonal challenges to working in this new way? So yeah, how was it for you, DanYeung?
The most challenging I had at the beginning was instead of thinking, I have to thinking it out. I mean, just thinking, I have to talk about it. And, most of the programmers don't talk that much. So it's a little difficult for me at first. And plus, the sitting not right in front of your computer, looking far away from the monitor, that's a little bit challenging for me. But I think that's really great after we do it for a while. All the brilliant brains work together and we solve problems really quickly.
Yeah, I'd like to add something in here because I had challenges, of course, myself. So Dexter, you had brought up something I think was really critical, is we wanted to see faster progress. And yet what I had noticed was at the end of the day, we had gotten a lot done, but during the day, it never felt like we were getting much done. It kind of seemed like we're just barely moving. But at the end of the day, we could look and see, boy, look at all these things we accomplished. So learning to allow, because when you work alone, you feel under pressure. And we worked as a team, that pressure evaporated because the big problems that would usually concern us had faded away. And all of a sudden, we weren't, spending much of our day waiting to get an answer from somebody about something we needed help with or something we needed clarified. It was just happening. So we started keeping records, and we actually did from the start. How much were we actually getting done? It feels less productive. In reality, it was a great deal more productive. So learning the ins and outs of something new like this for us, since we were we had nobody to guide us, we had to pay a lot of attention. Mm-hmm. And DanYeung, I want to say, all through the years, I don't know how long we've known each other, but I think it's over 20 years now. It's got to be way over 20 years now, 22, 23 years.
Yeah.
I always appreciated seeing you at the user group meetings and getting a chance to talk with you. Those days are long gone. I haven't been to any of those user group meetings in a long time, but I just wanted to mention that. I think I got introduced to Hunter because DanYeung was working there. And I appreciated that I was invited to come and apply for this position that we had. So thank you for that.
I'm so glad things work out for you.
Yeah, I learned a lot, and it was, who knows? I'm glad I was able to be there. I'm really interested in hearing, Chris, what difficulties you may have had.
There was, it was really interesting. I was really happy to be sharing that, different ways of that I had experienced in the past doing things and hearing everyone's experiences and things. I think Dexter mentioned earlier that I was navigating quite often. And so that did end up being a challenge. It was kind of like talking a lot, and we've worked that out. We had retrospectives, and we talked about distributing, navigation appropriately and things. And then, but I saw the benefits were just so tremendous. And we eventually got those things sorted out. And I really enjoyed it. That slow feeling, I think somebody had referred to it as the kind of the steamroller effect. You don't feel like you're in a Ferrari, but with a boulder in the way, you kind of get through it with a steamroller faster than you would with a Ferrari, right? And so that definitely, nothing stood in our way. We always, with DanYeung's, really deep domain knowledge and Dexter's willingness to go and see the customer and talk to them frequently, and Woody's knowledge of the lean aspects and coaching in general, and I think what I brought from a technical level, I think and we had another team member who really advocated for the interpersonal and kindness, consideration, and respect, and those aspects of it. With our powers combined, we were able to kind of just conquer all obstacles in our way.
Fantastic, and that's it's great hearing from you all on that one. And I think I only have 2 more questions in light of time. And I think for this last one, if it's not, how could I possibly work this way interpersonally? I'll often see out there on the Twitterverse or what have you on the internet is, how can I possibly convince my organization or system to allow this kind of thing to happen, or for there to be buy-in? So I won't start with you, Dexter. You're off the hook. I'm going to start with Woody on this one. So what do you got on this one, Woody?
So I don't think this could have happened if we didn't have a certain few things in place. So the first thing I would say is the team who hired me to be their manager or supervisor, they wanted to learn Agile stuff. They wanted to move beyond what they were already doing. That was the specific task I was given. They interviewed me, DanYeung and Dexter and the other folks. There were 2 other people on the team at that time, pre-mob programming. They interviewed me, as well as the person who would be my boss, as well as the managers who would be basically at the same level I was going to be. DanYeung, if you remember, they had to make a special slot for me, a position that didn't yet exist, to be able to bring me into this. So, and I'm really glad they did. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure it was at your insistence that I tell this story. They asked you to be the manager for this team, but you didn't want to be a manager. So you thought, I better find someone they'll hire. And you asked me to apply. Is that true? Is that your recollection of it?
Yes, I recommended you be the manager.
So this was a good thing for me, and I really appreciate the opportunity. I already had a good job, and everyone's heard this story probably, but when I came in there, I was very careful to make sure I would be given the freedom to allow this team to have the freedom to learn how they want to work. I would guide the process to some degree. I like to think of myself as a guide, an agile guide, but not much more than that. And so if we hadn't been given the freedom, I wouldn't have taken the job. So this is how it occurred. I want to make it really clear. I have already mentioned with Dexter and DanYeung, Chris wasn't there yet, but I could see these were the right people to invent their way of working. I hadn't worked at anywhere that allowed that in software development that I can easily remember, going back to maybe 1999, where I think I experienced that for a bit. It's very rare to find an organization where the team is allowed to figure out how to make themselves the best they can be. And that's, I think, what happened here. I think other people were already working as groups or teams across the world, but we were given really essentially full freedom to figure out how that should be. When the opportunity came for me to hire someone, I did something that I call stack the deck. And I was very careful to hire someone who I knew would be a good addition to the team. They call it a culture add. Not someone who would necessarily just fit in, but someone who would bring a lot of good stuff to the team. So when we were given the opportunity and we brought Chris in, you can see we had some good people there already. We were building out a better team. And I don't think this would have happened if that wasn't what the situation was. You can hear me talk about that in various conference talks that are on YouTube and whatnot. But yeah. And I'm going to look back now and say there was a fundamental, critical little thing that occurred. And that was, we went to a Open Agile conference up in it was in Irvine, just 80 miles or less from where we live. And the week after that, we had been exposed to so many cool things that the opportunities seemed limitless. And we just were charging along, and all of a sudden, DanYeung came to me and said, hey, I've got something I need the team to help me on. Can we get together and look at this together? And instead of just looking at it together, we start working on it together. And it's still crystal clear in my mind, at least my fading memory of it, was that at the end of doing this for a couple hours, everybody said, let's just keep doing this. We'd set aside a couple hour meeting, and we just kept working that way the rest of the day. So yeah, there was a lot in place to get this happening. Dexter, if you'll recall, we started pair programming. Right. I would often take a ticket off the board that I had no clue what it was about. I said, I'll work on this, but I need somebody's help. And somebody else on the team would always say, yeah, I'll help you. And it was a joy. It was a joy to work with this group of people.
Nice. Yeah. How about from your perspective, DanYeung, what helped with buy-in for maintaining mobbing?
I think when we have mob programming, we learn so much from each other. So maybe some way you can do something, but someone may have better approach. So we share, or maybe 2-3 people figure out a way even better than all of them. I mean, that was really great. And talking about Agile conference, that was so cool. I think it's really nice to, I wouldn't have an opportunity to host a session if not the Agile. So you just go up there, that's the topic one I want to talk about, that who want to come to my session, then you're hosting a session. That's really a good experience. I like that. I like the Agile approach.
I have a question for you, DanYeung. I know that before I got there, there was a lot of discontent amongst the people who were writing the software for. And I think that what started happening once we started working this way is we started building a lot of relationships with the other managers and the other people on other parts of the company that needed to have software done. Is that your recollection as well?
Is that what's your last question?
That that we started building relationships, better relationships with the people we were writing the software for, that they were starting to work with us, and we were they were becoming, in a way, part of our team. Whereas I don't think that was happening before. As a matter of fact, there was a couple of people, including a QA person, who they felt their job was to go between the team and the in-house customers. So yeah. So the question is, did you notice that as well?
Yeah, that's correct. So they become the team instead of an issue come up, you blame, you didn't say it correctly, you do it correctly. So we all sit together, figure it out, what the customer want, what do we want to do, and that's no blaming game. That's really cool.
Nice. Right on, right on. Well, in light of time, I'm going to have to start closing it down, but this has been fantastic, just hearing from all different perspectives. There's one question that got slipped in here, maybe by Dexter. Why does Woody like to go bushwhacking? Is he not afraid of ticks? So this is a question that the whole world needs to know the answer to, Woody.
Yeah, you just need to pay attention. At the end of the day, you check, did a tick is there still a rattlesnake stuck to me? And so, yeah, I love to get out there in the brush and hike. And my wife will tell you, and I've got tons of good stories to back it up. I'm not afraid of anything. And if I were to die falling off of a cliff, at least I would have been doing something I enjoyed. So there we go. But the whole team would get out and hike pretty much. We got out and we started hiking up all the hills there in San Marcos, and we had a great time. Sometimes our lunch period hike would turn out to be 2.5 hours. But I think that was a powerful team building activity that worked well for us.
Nice. Hikes and ticks and all, right on. Well, we're gonna close it out, but I'll give an opportunity for many of you to share or plug anything before we close. So starting with you, Dexter, anything you want to share or plug before we close out this episode?
I think the most powerful element for a team to or tool for a product to use is retrospectives. Do them often, often enough that people stop asking the same question and experiment a lot. I think that would be the things I would like to leave behind.
Right on. How about you, DanYeung?
I think the thing I like the most is the building a relationship with the product owner and among our developers.
Right on.
That's great.
Right on. And anything to share or plug, Woody?
Well, to share something is like find the place where you get the opportunity to build and make things better. If you can't find it in the place you're working, maybe you can grow it there. And if you can't, keep your eyes open. But I do want to plug, I took a couple months off. It's been really too busy of a period since we had to start remote working and from home. And so I just hard charged for too long. And I said, I'm going to take some time off with the family, work on some yard work and other things I need to do around the house. And I'm just ending that. So I'm opening up for booking. I don't know when this will air, but I just opened up my calendar. It looks like I still have a little time in October, but I've got calendar time in November and December. So please, if you're interested in having a mob programming workshop or some coaching or guidance, please contact me. You can get me through Twitter, Woody Zuill, or through LinkedIn, Woody Zuill. I use the same name pretty much everywhere. So I'd love to see you.
Nice. And it's funny to ask you. Yeah, right on. And it's funny to ask you this question, Chris, but was there anything like to share or plug before we end the show?
Yeah. So I just wanted to point out that community was of paramount importance here. If DanYeung hadn't been going to the .NET developer groups, she would have never met Woody. And these were like kind of in San Diego, but like this is just everywhere in general. If I wasn't going to the same group, then I would have never met Woody. And I think that this was spaced out in time over a number of years. And we as a team since then have hired many people out of that group who have hired other people that they've known through other groups on our team here. And so so I would just say find the best local user group you can and start developing relationships with other developers in the community. both inside and outside your companies. And then I'll also say that the open space conferences are really fantastic. And so, there's tons of them out there. I regularly attend the Agile Open San Diego, Agile Open SoCal, Agile Open NorCal, and the Agile Open Northwest. So, and I know that there's a number of them all over the place. So maybe we'll provide some links for those as well.
Right on. Very good. And so thank you all for sharing. Thank you so much for being part of this panel. This was a huge pleasure for me, and I'm sure for our audience. So audience, if you're out there and you're really liking what you're hearing and you want to share and celebrate the 10-year anniversary of mob programming and some of the lessons learned and inspiration from it, please like and subscribe, and then share this video or podcast with someone. And until next time, mob well, everybody, and have a good one. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.